Welcome to the Monsters and Hazards video. In this video, we'll look at how monsters and hazards are used in critical situations. This video is mainly intended for the Game Master, GM, but players can also watch this. It covers some basic rules along with some advanced ones. You don't need to know about the advanced rules to start running the sample mission in Chapter 15, so you can jump past them and come back later. During the course of missions, the player characters, or PCs, may encounter critical situations that require them to take turns to resolve. The two major types of critical situations are combat situation and escape situation. In combat situations, the players fight monsters, very easy to understand. While in escape situations, they run away from danger, and their path to the safe zone is usually obstructed by various hazards. They use mostly the same rule set, but there are some minor differences. Let's start with combat situation. You begin with the three-step setup process. The victory and failure condition can be anything you set, such as destroying an ancient artifact within a certain number of rounds, or sealing a great evil. But the default and most common one is to rout the enemy. The enemy group is routed when they lose all their morale tokens. Morale tokens are calculated like this. Each normal ranked enemy unit brings 1 morale token to the group. Captains bring 2, bosses bring 3, and Horde units bring 5. They can only have a maximum of 10 morale tokens as a group. So, a group of monsters with 1 boss-ranked enemy, 1 captain, and 2 normal monsters have a total of 7 morale tokens. The default failure condition is to have all the PCs downed, or a wipeout. A PC is downed when either their hit points, HP, or mind points, MP, are reduced to 0. Turn order is established according to the turn speed. Those with higher turn speed go earlier. If the PC and monster have the same turn order, PCs always go first. If the monsters have the same turn order, then it's up to the GM to decide which monster goes first. Their turn speed can be found on the monster or NPC stat blocks. Finally, you decide the enemy's position. When you call for a scenario position, you just place the enemies and PCs wherever it's logical for the narrative. For standard formation, your party and the enemy group are placed in separate zones, with 1 empty zone in between. You can advance any number of enemies to the front line to intercept the PCs in the melee zone. If the players do not advance any character into the melee zone, then you can advance the enemy units all the way back to your opponent's backup zone, and vice versa. Now that the setup is done, you take turns according to the turn order. Monsters are controlled very much like a player character. Just to clarify, even though we use the term monster in this video, the same rules apply to NPCs. Most of the options in Chapter 11 are available to them, except for the spirit token gain, because monsters don't use spirit tokens. All the monsters' abilities, bonuses, attacks, and the number of actions they can take are written on their stat blocks. The Beowulf can use its major action to make a shred attack, and use a minor action to make 1 additional follow-up shred attack. Each follow-up attack uses a minor action, so monsters like the Spider Sentry, that can make 2 follow-up attacks, have to use 2 minor actions for those 2 additional attacks. When monsters such as the Spider Sentry make damaging effect actions, such as the Lightning Blaster, the effect roll bonus and damage bonus are added together. For your convenience, the sum of the 2 bonuses have been pre-calculated in the small parentheses. You can just roll this number instead. The result is reduced by each target's relevant fortitudes. Since this is a zone effect action that deals damage to your chosen targets in a zone, it allows you to prevent friendly fire with this action and affect all your intended targets in the zone. When a PC is reduced to 0 hit points, they gain the downed condition, fall prone, and any excess damage below 0 is converted to resolve damage. The same goes for MP damage. Some monsters, such as poltergeists, can damage MP as well as HP. Downed PCs are conscious, but can't act on their turn. They can still gain and share spirit tokens to encourage their party members to continue the fight. If they receive any recoveries and none of their HP or MP are at 0, the downed condition is removed and they can act normally again. In certain situations, PCs may want to delay their turn order so that they can take it immediately after they're healed. PCs are killed only when their resolve is reduced to 0. Resolve is used for recovery during breaks too, so players have to spend it judiciously. If the whole PC party is downed, then they're wiped out and fail not only the critical situation, but also the mission. Wiped parties are left to the GM's mercy. The usual treatment for wiped parties is that they are all killed, and their bodies are recovered by another party of Cloudbreakers for possible revival. A risky procedure with a chance of failure. The enemy group's morale tokens can be reduced by 3 main methods. The first is by defeating the enemy. This can be done by reducing the enemy's HP or MP to 0. Defeated enemies are removed from the situation, and the group loses 1 morale token. Any lost morale token is rewarded to the PC responsible for it as a spirit token. Another way of reducing morale tokens is by neutralizing the enemy. Players can exploit monsters and NPCs' neutralization weaknesses and make the appropriate skill or toolkit rolls. Their neutralization method is in their stat blocks. Similarly, neutralized enemies are removed from the situation, and the group loses a morale token. Cloudbreaker Alliance has an open book policy. Players can always check the monster and NPC stat blocks as long as they know what they are. That's why some clever monsters hide their identities or attack in darkness. On their turn, the PCs can analyze the unknown monsters with their information or other relevant roles and uncover their stat blocks. The first analyze roll on a PC's turn is a free action, and subsequent ones require minor actions. If they failed their information roll, the GM should tell them what other skills or toolkits they can use. The neutralization task difficulty, or TD, is usually quite high, but it will be reduced when the enemy falters. The most common way to cause a monster to falter is to reduce their HP to 50% or below, but some monsters have different faltering conditions. The last method of reducing morale tokens is having the Game Master spend them as morale boosts. There are a few ways of spending morale tokens. The most common one is Emergency Half Recovery. This allows monsters reduced to 0 HP or MP to instantly recover half of their max HP or MP and offset the damage done. This is a risky move. It will keep the monster on the field to maintain the pressure on the players, but if it's overused, the enemy group's morale may collapse rapidly. Once the enemy group loses all their morale, they will rout and the PCs will win. The GM then narratively fast-forwards the process and the PCs can wipe them out or let them escape, if they're being merciful. There are other morale boost options, such as Ignore Neutralization, Retry, and Invigorate. You can find them on page 233. Game Masters can find a guide on how to design combat situations in Chapter 12. The following are advanced monster rules that you don't need to watch to start playing the sample mission. You can jump ahead to the escape situation if you want, and come back to them later. Any normal enemy can be turned into a captain or boss-ranked enemy, and they get additional features. Captains bring 2 morale tokens to the group, gain access to more morale boost features, and gain a danger token at the start of their turn. This is the equivalent of Spirit Burst for the enemy, and it allows some monsters to unleash their powerful Danger Burst special abilities. There are also a couple of default Danger Bursts that all captain or boss monsters can use. Spending 3 danger tokens lets the monster turn any hit into a critical hit, and spending 5 tokens doubles all the damage it deals for 1 turn. It is very important to show the danger token accumulation to the players, because it increases the tension and adds to the excitement. Boss monsters gain the features above, but they bring 3 morale tokens to the group and get to move twice. Once at the usual turn order and next at -5 of the normal turn order. If the turn order goes to 0, it is considered as 10 on the next round and continues from there. A monster with a turn speed of 4, for example, gets to move at 4 and 9 on the next round, and so on. Horde units bring 5 morale tokens to the group and represent an endless horde of monsters that keeps coming. They have a special pour-in movement rule and fill new zones instead of moving from one zone to another. They can only attack targets that share a zone with them. They can't be neutralized, and the only way to win is to reduce their group morale to 0. Instead of HP, they have HP threshold. They lose 1 morale token every time you deal enough damage to reach the HP threshold. So, a Preda Horde will lose 1 morale token once they have accumulated 24, 48, 72 HP damage, and so on. Horde units make great morale token battery and meat shields for bosses. These advanced monster ranks may be quite difficult to learn all at once, so you can use the Learning the Game section in Chapter 14 as a guide and pace your learning over a few missions to slowly get accustomed to the different monster mechanics. Escape situation is run quite similarly to combat situations, with some differences. The default victory condition is to escape the danger by reaching the safe zone. But you can easily modify this into a chase situation, where you have to catch a thief or hack a computer within a specified number of rounds. There are 2 basic modes of escape situations. The first one is escaping an epic trap, such as an exploding building, and the other one is escaping monsters. Without spoiling the story, the sample mission more closely resembles the second one. So, we will cover that in more detail. Turn order for PCs is determined in the same way as combat situations, but the monster's turn is delayed. According to the standard rules, they only appear on round 2, and their turn speed is reduced to 1. But pre-written missions, such as the sample mission, may have unique rules. There are 2 starting positions. In the scenario formation, the PCs are placed wherever it is narratively logical, while in standard formation, their starting position is in the same starting zone. Once you're set up, most of the job is done. The players just need to reach the safe zone, and the Game Master just needs to rule for the hazards the PCs come across. Hazards are separated by their 2 major activation categories: traversal hazard, which is activated by units passing through it, such as oiled wall. Zone hazard, on the other hand, is context dependent. It may be activated by units entering it, such as quicksand, staying in it, such as burning coal, or exiting it, such as stone sentinel maze. Hazards do not necessarily deal damage to the PCs. Many of them just stop the PC's movement and waste their action. The oiled wall, for example, prevents units from moving past it. The PCs can overcome this hazard by climbing over it. All they need to do is roll 9 with their sports skill or climbing kit. Instead of overcoming a hazard, the PCs may choose to use a minor action to neutralize it. One of the neutralization methods of the oiled wall is to attach a rope ladder by rolling 12 with a climbing kit. Neutralizing requires a higher task difficulty roll, but by doing this, their party members no longer need to roll their skills or toolkits to overcome it. As GM, you should encourage your players to cooperate by discussing their better skills and organize their turns. PCs can always delay their turn order to let other PCs go first, but of course, if they delay too much, they will eventually run out of time and the monsters will catch up. The following epic trap rule is part of the advanced escape situation rules that you don't need to watch to run the sample mission, but it's useful for designing your own missions. Instead of running away from monsters, PCs can run from devastating traps called epic traps. They could be a time bomb, tsunami, ghostly maelstroms, or whatever. Epic traps are centered in a zone, which becomes its epicenter, usually placed right in the starting zone, and will trigger after a certain number of rounds have passed. The further they move away from the epicenter, the less damage they will take. Shelters and certain spells can reduce the damage further. Of course, if they reach the safe zone, they won't take any damage at all. Game masters can find a guide on how to design escape situations in Chapter 13. Now that you have finished this and the Beginner's Guide videos, you should have most of the necessary knowledge to run the sample mission in Chapter 15 as Game Master. If you have the free time before your scheduled game, or you want to help your players understand their pre-made character, you can watch the relevant character video. If you haven't already owned Cloudbreaker Alliance, you can go buy the game from the links below. Also, subscribe to the channel because we will be releasing more in-depth videos in the future.